Hi guys! Today we're talking about singing terminology. Many of you asked about this and I figured I would just deliver. So today I have my list, I have my terms, I have my definitions, and I'm going to talk to you about how these things interact with one another. Before we get into it though, I want to say this video is self-sponsored by my singing course, the Sing-Songwriter Toolkit. If you struggle to pay for voice lessons, it's just not in the budget, or you just don't feel comfortable going there yet, but you still have an interest in learning how to sing better, I highly recommend checking out the Sing-Songwriter Toolkit down below. It is less than the cost of one lesson, and it has 2.5 hours of video explanations, tutorials, warm-ups, follow-along guides, practice guides, all of it down below. You can check that out. It is for the beginner singer, so if you really are trying to get a solid foundation, if you've been just teaching yourself this whole time, highly recommend getting in the know, because if you can get through this course, you can start taking lessons and making progress, man. Or, you know, just enjoy your singing on your own. You don't need a teacher necessarily. Okay, back to the video. So we have 3 sections today. We're going to section this off into how the voice works, the terminology associated with it, how you create beautiful sound, the terminology associated with that, and then the bonus word category, because I have a bonus word that just doesn't fit in any category. So let's talk about how your voice works. So the first term is diaphragm. You've probably heard this before. If you've ever been in a science class that talks about anatomy, or someone says you need to sing with your diaphragm or use your diaphragm. What is that? What is that thing? The diaphragm is a muscle that sits just below the lungs. In fact, it's attached to it, and it pulls open the lungs when you inhale, and it pushes up to collapse the lungs as you exhale. So this is a vital part of singing. In fact, this might be the most important part of the singing apparatus beyond your vocal cords, which we'll get into in a little bit. But your diaphragm is the thing that helps you breathe. Although I don't know of anyone, including myself, who physically can sense their diaphragm. Like, I don't sit here and think, oh, I can feel that my diaphragm feels XYZ today. Like, it's mainly the core musculature around the diaphragm that you feel and that you engage with. So don't be alarmed if you don't feel it, but that's what the diaphragm is. The second term we got is larynx. Now, you got the trachea, or the breathing tube, from your lungs all the way up to your mouth, and along the way at the top of the trachea we have what's called the larynx, or the voice box. And this thing is basically it's not full of bones or anything. It's only got one bone, the hyoid bone, or the Adam's apple, which is very pronounced in men, but women have it too. It's just not quite as big. The voice box is right here. I think of it as like a suspension bridge, because it is flexible, and it suspends the vocal folds, or the vocal cords, which are 2 pieces of tissue that can stretch, contract, and tilt, all because the larynx is manipulating them. So that's how they work in tandem. You have the larynx, the voice box, and then the vocal cords, or folds, which are inside the larynx, right over the top of the trachea, or the breathing tube. So we got 2 more. We got the pharynx, which is the back of the throat, is called the pharynx. So you have the larynx and the pharynx. I have a list of like band names, and one of them is called Wind in the Pharynx. So don't take it, that's mine. So Wind in the Pharynx honestly would be a really sick metal band. I would see them for sure. All right, we got pharynx, which is just a fancy name for the back of your throat, which is where your soft palate lives, which is the roof of the mouth right here. Is called the hard palate. If you feel it with your tongue, it's pretty hard and inflexible, but the further back you go, it becomes more flexible. You can use your finger or your tongue to kind of feel that, or try yawning. You'll feel this lift in the back of the throat, or the pharynx, and that is where the soft palate is, and that's what's lifting. That's what's creating that upward motion in the back. So let's move on to how you create beautiful sound. There's a lot of terminology within this, and I had to narrow it down. I think in a future video, I'll make a video on dynamics and all the terminology associated with that, which could fill a whole, I mean, it has filled entire books. I have a music terminology dictionary, for God's sakes. mostly on dynamic markings, but we'll get into that another time. So how you create beautiful sound, first and foremost, starts with resonance. Now, what is resonance? I have it right here. Resonance is the reinforcement and prolongation of sound. So think of a guitar. You have the body of the guitar. That is where the sound resonates or is reinforced and prolonged. The sound waves kind of bounce around in there and they get bigger and magnify and they come out the sound hole of the guitar. In this case, we have resonant chambers in the body. Resonant chambers would be your mouth, your sinuses, and your chest, which again, I have outlined in that How Your Voice Actually Works video. Your resonant chambers are the places where your sound resonates. We're going to use this terminology. And these different places, the chest, the mouth, the head, or the sinuses, create different types of resonance or different types of voice, which we call chest voice, which resonates mainly in the chest. We have head voice, which resonates almost entirely or mainly in the sinuses. And we have mixed voice, which is a combination of them. We resonate a bit in the head, resonate a bit in the chest, and all of it comes out in the mouth. So mixed voice, there you go. A mix of all of them. And then finally, the last two terms we have are timbre. I think of it as like the sonic texture or color. That's what makes your voice different from everyone else's, essentially. So we could describe timbre as like crystalline and clear, or gritty and gravelly, or silky, or velvety, or creamy, or like nasal. Like those are all ways to describe timbre, which is the textural quality of the sound. And then you have the passaggio. Passaggio is Italian for changeover. You can also call this your register shift. So, or register change. This is where your voice tends to crack. Right there where it was really weird, it just switched. That was my lower passaggio. It's Italian for changeover. We use that a lot in classical singing. That term is rampant in the singing world, but most people who are untrained have never heard of it before, but it's basically naming that moment or those moments in your range where your voice is shifting into a different register or different voice, from chest voice to mixed voice to head voice. That is typically where your passaggi are. And finally, we have our bonus term. Schwa is your bonus term today. Schwa is the official term from the International Phonetic Alphabet for the sound UH, The name of that sound is schwa, and we don't really like to sing on schwas. If I'm singing on an typically your sound is going to be a lot more out of tune. Your voice is just going to tend to be out of tune, and it's hard to warm up that sound like doesn't sound great versus a lot better, right? So schwa is your bonus term. You can use that however you like to refer to the sound. That is so rampant in English. We say it all the time. And there it goes. I said that again. Now I can't stop saying it. Okay, well, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Let me know if there's terminology that you want covered in the comments. There I go with the schwas. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next Friday. Happy singing.